a nominated senator will be among the senators there. Gloria Rwoba.
Good morning.
First things first, congratulations.
Asante sana, although we are still waiting for the Gazette notice. It hasn't come out. We hope it comes out today so we can be able to go for the orientation. But thank you. Thank you.
It's supposed to be done by IEBC, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But since we're waiting, you're still a nominated senator. Yes. Karibu sana.
Asante.
And thanks for making time.
Yes.
And on my extreme left, we have Dr. Joseph Rotich, who is a political analyst. Karibu sana.
Thank you so much, brother.
Now, first things first. Beginning with you, Gloria, you've seen how things are panning out at Kasarani in regards to what we're expecting on Tuesday. I would like to get your sentiments on the same.
I think these are exciting times for Kenyans. To have actually come out of the election peacefully and, come out of the Supreme Court ruling peacefully. And I think now the focus actually for the Kenya Kwanza team is to really implement the plan, which was the manifesto, which is what we sold to the electorate to tell them these are the developments and the things that we hope our government will put in place. So I think it's exciting times. Of course, we're looking forward to the swearing-in ceremony on 13th. Of course, we would like to have that done with, but the most important thing, and I think you will get this feeling from a lot of the leaders on the Kenya Kwanza, is we are already trying to start executing the plan. And because, our country is not in a place where we can have celebrations for even more than that 3-4 hours that we will be there, because we don't have time. We need to turn the economy around. We need to ensure that Kenyans are able to, go back to their normal life. And, we've really suffered economically in terms of, post-pandemic economy. And we really need to just start working. We need to turn this thing around. Yeah.
And Doc, looking at what Gladys Boss-Sholei has talked about in regards to the budget, the president-elect wants it to be at least on a budget that, will reflect not only the wish of Kenyans, but also the current economic times that we are currently undergoing.
I think, thank you so much, brother. I think we are coming at such a time when Kenyans are highly excited. It is also a time when Kenyans are expressing the most out of the incoming government. We have had the longest time of campaign. And if you can remember, my brother, Kenyans are already tired and they want to see the real promises that the leadership that is taking over now had actually promised. And as per the budget, you see, everything is, I don't count the current budget to be a budget of the incoming. It is a budget that was organized by the outgoing administration. And I don't want to criticize, or I can offer some critique, because it should not be an exorbitant budget. Based on the current economic status of this country, we are at the point or at the edge of collapsing. And in this case, I would have wished that we should have done this thing in a very humble way. But based on the excitement and then the anxieties that the incoming and the outgoing administration is based on, I believe they have itemized, they have cost-itemized everything that they want to do in this celebration. But if you look back a little bit, you also saw what happened at the county levels during the swearing in of the governors. Some counties had their budget up to over 22 million. And others had to the level of 250,000. You can just imagine. What is the whole difference? What is the whole margin of difference? What has brought about all this? What has occasioned all this? And unwarranted expenditure. I would wish our expenditure should be at minimal. If I was told that it is going to be 30 million, I would have said it is a comfortable budget, but 200 million, it is on the higher side.
It's on the higher side?
It is on the higher side.
All right. Of course, we will crunch the numbers a little bit later on. But looking at the swearing in, there's a lot that is happening Other than the feedback from how the court conducted itself in terms of the Supreme and we have also the game of numbers at the Senate and at the National Assembly, and you will be playing the game of numbers when you come to the Senate. Kenya Kwanza has a slight edge over Azimio, but at the end of the day, there will be IEBC will be conducting the elections at Parliament, so that we may get the third in command in the country, that is the Speaker of the National Assembly, and also the Speaker of the Senate. And mostly talking about the Senate. What is your feel in terms of the numbers and how they are shifting?
At the Senate, Kenya Kwanza has an outright majority. I believe we have 24 senators, and then Azimio has 23. And from the 20 nominated senators, it will be split equally, so we have an outright majority. And there's no discussion there. We have a majority at the Senate. At the National Assembly, though, Azimio has a legal majority of about 167, I could be wrong, and Kenya Kwanza has 158. But remember, we had 12 MPs who shifted from Azimio. 2 of them are independent candidates, and 10 came from the various parties that I think from Azimio. So 12 shifted. So legally, Azimio has, legally, they have the majority in the National Assembly, but efficiently,
on paper.
That was on paper.
Yes.
But practically, because you see, it's going. The voting is going to be on a secret ballot, and if you've already been compelled to actually move from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza prior to the election of the Speaker, then I think on paper Azimio will have a majority, but really the proceedings at the House will see that the Kenya Kwanza agenda is going to be pushed. That is how I foresee it, and I think even if you add the nominated slots in the National Assembly, there still isn't any. The point is Kenya Kwanza will carry the day, and I think that's one of the things. While we had the Azimio team going to court and trying to follow up on issues on elections, and that's when really Kenya Kwanza was 2 steps ahead. We saw our president William Ruto actually whipping people and receiving them and trying to convince them that you need to come to this side. We will work together. And so during, I think, that 1 week, he was able to move 12 MPs from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza, and you will see that play out in Parliament when we are actually going to elect the Speaker.
Yes, Doc, and it's a game of numbers, and looking at how things panned out, as Gloria has talked about, is it Azimio on paper have the numbers, but vitu kwa ground ni different because of what the president-elect did. He has been able to, what we could say, more or less like dangle the political carrots, and he has been able to get some of the numbers that are independent, and also has also been able to dig in Azimio to get the numbers.
I think, my brother, there are 2 things that will play about in this, the whole game of numbers. I have heard yesterday the Western people, urging themselves that please let us not leave one of our own, that is Wetangula, who is actually one of the candidates who will actually compete for the position of Speaker of the National Assembly. And in this case, when you look at it, there are those intrigues that are quite inside. I mean, particular interest from particular regions that will play beyond or above the party interest. Because in this case, I don't foresee a situation whereby the Western people, especially those who are in the Azimio, will leave Wetangula aside just because of the party alienation. The things will be very different. And even those people whom the Kenya Kwanza have actually proposed from the coast that they are going to have the Senate Speaker. I believe the whole coast people will rally behind their own person. So away from the party interest, away from the party alienation, there will be regional interest in this game, and you will actually see it playing out during the election of the speakers of both the Senate and the National Assembly. So I don't foresee a lot of issues. And of course, let me tell you, my brother, the issue of the government and the representations, people are now looking at the government as at the current. they are not seeing the opposition so much. And in fact, those people will stick to the opposition. There will be very few. They will only be sticking on the other interests away from their individual interests. You saw also some members from the Luo Nyanza who are the first to show some interest. Promising the president-elect that we are going to be together in your government. So you can see the things are bringing up. And of course, that is just an iceberg. There are a lot of things that will luckily play into that. Because what the Kenyans are after now, they want to be allied to the winning party, the decision table. I mean, the place where things will be decided. So when the decision will be made by the Kenya Kwanza, all those who have been outside, even those who are in Azimio, have an interest in having the real cake, being at the decision table of the decision making of this country.
Yes, and I'm quite sure now when you talk about the national cake, a lot is being done now. We are mixing the ingredients, the milk, the sugar, because everyone wants a share of that. And I want to bring in, we are fortifying our bench here. We are also joined by an advocate of the High Court and also a political and governance expert, Martin Oloo. Karibu sana. And let me just throw you in the deep end, your sentiments in regards to what we are expecting, of course, the game of numbers. And talking about numbers, just like football, if one player is out, then the shift turns, or the bends towards the team that has the 11 players. And even we've seen some of the politicians placing a multi-bet. A good example is Marende, who has given both papers from both the National Assembly and also at the Senate. But it's all about the game of numbers, and everyone wants to have a piece of the cake that we are expecting after the swearing in. We'll start slicing the pieces.
You know, my friend, thank you for having me, and I've been able to listen into my friends here. And I'm surprised that we still talk as if we are in the Kanu era. The power games shifted with the new Constitution 2010. Power does not reside inside the executive. In fact, power resides inside the parliament, inside the National Assembly, inside the Senate. So that it's not about the agenda of government, it's rather parliament that has the agenda. Why am I saying that? The parliament we have has three roles. One is representation, so they are really representing Kenyans. Remember this, the sovereign power of Kenyans donated to them. Secondly, they are oversighting. Parliament in its entirety oversights government, oversights the executive. And therefore, the main role that parliament plays is that of oversighting. But also remember that it's in parliament that now budget making resides. So it's not again in the executive. So it's in parliament where the treasury will bring the budget policy for approval, and then parliament will crank those numbers. So power is no longer centered in the office of the president. Resource distribution is no longer centered there. It is actually inside parliament. Having said that, again, I've heard about numbers, and my sister there says that, you know, things on the ground are different. On paper, there's legal. I think, again, from our democratic governance perspective, we need to respect our institutions and need to suggest that when you look at the National Assembly, it's comprised of different players. But when the National Assembly meets, it meets as the National Assembly, not as an Azimio or as a Kenya Kwanza. They transact as. Of course, there is government programs, and there's need for bipartisanship. I mean, this is a point I really want to bring. Then no government can ever run an agenda without looking for the bipartisanship spirit. So there will be need for both sides to talk to each other, because at the end of the day, the agenda we're dealing with is the Kenya's agenda, not, I've heard somebody saying, our president. Now, I want to ask people of Kenya Kwanza that William Ruto is no longer their president. He's the president of Kenya. He's the president of the people who are in Kenya Kwanza. He's the president of those who are in Azimio. He's the president of those who did not even vote, because they are Kenyans.
But looking at what he did exactly after the elections, he did something that any president would do, try to marshal more numbers so that he may gain control of the National Assembly.
And that is fine, because you see, the point that we want to make is that used to make sense during Moi's days. You would ask,
I'm quite sure Gloria has.
You would ask people to defect from DP to Kanu and so on, because Kanu was Baba na Mama.
Yes.
Not anymore.
So in short, that's not democracy?
No, okay. Actually, when I say our president, I don't know why he would consider that I am owning the president as Kenya Kwanza. Our president, I am a Kenyan. So I'm saying
you don't have to defend it. It's what came out.
Yes, our president as a Kenyan, our president is the president of all Kenyans.
Yeah, but so then again, he's not a president. He's not a president.
No, he's our president. The same way Uhuru Kenyatta was our president. So our president. Let's just start normalizing that when we say our president, we mean as Kenyans, we have a president that has been elected, and we are going to swear him in on 13th. Yeah. And that is something that I feel, and I have been telling people, normalize it. He is ours now. He's everyone's. We are Kenyans. So, and the issue of I feel like Wakili, with all due respect, there's a lot of theory there because, you know, Parliament operates as Parliament as an institution. But we know that the order of Parliament and the business in Parliament, if you're in government, you know that for you to pass legislation, for you to pass, for even your cabinet to be approved, because they are actually going, the names will be sent to Parliament for, you know, scrutiny and all that. Even for your cabinet to be constituted, you need to be able to have some level of influence and control of both the National Assembly and the Senate. And that's the reason why in democratic societies and democratic states, as much as you have Parliament as an institution, it is actually in your interest as a sitting president or as that an individual who's in government to understand that in order for your business, as the agenda that you have now, for now, we have the plan, Kenya Kwanza plan. For us to be able to execute that agenda, we need legislation, we need goodwill from Parliament.
You see, when you say for us, I have a problem. My sister, I have a problem. No, again, you also need to listen to other voices.
We put out
she will need to listen to other voices.
We put out promises.
It's not about the Kenya Kwanza agenda.
And then we can dig it.
Promises in the form of the plan. And I say we, because, you know, ownership, I don't understand why there's a lot of ice. I'm sitting here as a nominated senator from UDA. Yeah, let us also be practical.
Listen to Kenyans.
And we in UDA and in Kenya Kwanza went out and sold a plan. And we actually had promises to the electorate. Based on that plan, the electorate went to the ballot and voted and said, I want to vote for this government because this is the government that, for instance, will push the women charter that we had promised. And in order for us now, as the government that is in the day that we've come in, to implement most of those strategies, of course, we need to work with Parliament. We need to whip the numbers. We need to be able to say, for instance, in the women charter, we have plans that include budgetary allocations. And those things need to be
allow me. What does this mean? And the swearing in is tomorrow. So do we expect a Gazette notice anytime today?
There should have been one. There should have been one. Yes. Because you see, we are talking about Parliament convening. I mean, Parliament convening. Parliament is both the National Assembly and the Senate. Both houses are convening at the same time, which means that then they'll proceed to be sworn in and they'll proceed with parliamentary business, which in the first place, the first item is the election of a speaker. Now, if these houses are not fully constituted and they are convening tomorrow, it raises legal constitutional issues, because then the strength of various parties could have been bettered by the presence of even, and see, this strength is not just in terms of numbers, it's also in terms of minorities, in terms of other gender and others. So there will be people whose voices may not count because their nomination had not been gazetted. So that is a challenge we have. Granted that sometimes we have a constitution, we have procedures, and we choose to take the hard route, which is
we always do the last minute.
Look at that kind of induction going on. Surely the assemblies, I mean the Senate is meeting tomorrow. You are talking about an induction today. There are people who have never stepped in this house. They needed time to be processed,
and we've noticed that we haven't seen anyone.
Yeah. So by the time they walk there tomorrow, they will not even know how to use that button or how to the procedures are standing order. So I mean, so some things need to be done a little bit.
And Gloria, you're here, and we're hoping that you go for the orientation.
I'm one of those people who've never been there. We don't know how to use the button. So we need that orientation. I actually don't know why, particularly for Senate, I don't know why it has taken long for that Gazette notice to come out. And for the National Assembly, I can imagine that, you know, we had those 4 4 MPs that had not been elected, who, you know, when we did the election of Mombasa and Kakamega, that's when the election. So I can imagine theirs took longer because the numbers could shift. You couldn't gazette half and half. But for the Senate, and I guess the gazette all nominated both MPs and senators together. But I mean, really, this is the 11th hour because, you know, I don't think they will be able to now set another day aside to say, by the way, we didn't even have orientation for these 20 nominated MPs and these 20 senators. And actually, yesterday I was being told, usiende mashinani because the Gazette notice might come out midnight or morning, and then you go for the orientation. I mean, as it stands now, the Gazette notice can come out and my name is not there. So, you know, the Gazette notice is actually, it is the confirmation that indeed you made it to the as a nominated MP or as a nominated senator. So I think it's also not fair even for those individuals who are listed there too. It's a lot of anxiety. And I really don't know what that is because, as Wakili said, I am not a legal expert, but I am pretty sure that they cannot run the first session without a fully constituted house. So we are also, it's a lot of gambling, and of course the first order of the day is the election of the speaker. So I don't know, it's starting to look very clumsy.
Okay. And Gloria, looking at how the houses will be, and looking at what happened, the Supreme Court did pronounce itself on the National Government Constituency Development Fund, and also some parks by the legislators have been removed. But unfortunately, is that SRC, what SRC gave out, could be still challenged because they are you are the lawmakers now.
You know, I think SRC is actually trying to put some order. Like any other industry, there should be ways in which you carry out staff appraisals, and you know, if there are increment in salaries and things, they are just doing their job. But it will be interesting to see what the first order of business of the houses will be, because of course there are some issues that were touched on with regards to like stuff like the car grant, for instance. It actually wasn't removed. They shifted it from a grant to reimbursement, and they put in restrictions such that they can make sure, for instance, the CCs of the cars that you're buying are limited, and they organized it. And I don't want to speak much about it because because I'm yet to be gazetted, first of all, and go for orientation so that I can understand what is there. But what's important to note is that SRC was actually, it's a creation of these houses. And the risk is that the houses can also eliminate SRC.
Yeah, because they're the one who put it there in the first place.
Not legally, because
can they do
legally Wakili can guide us.
It's a constitutional. No, it's a constitutional.
He can guide us, but one thing I know is that...
But they can overturn that, right? Perhaps you can lean on that.
Ping pong between SRC and if you remember, or if you noted, most of those decisions were being implemented during the election time, because any other time members of parliament would have shut it down. Even the decision for CDF came during the election time.
The election
SRC, actually, but basically what we are saying is this, and maybe we need to also look at where SRC is coming from. He's saying, gone are the days when parliament used to be a part-time job. Because when parliament was a part-time job, people were doing other things. They came for 3 sittings and they were paid allowance and they went. There was no really a salary worth talking about. When you look at the Saronei and Taita Toweta, and look at those guys, they never used to earn a salary that you can see today. But today, we are increasingly making it a salaried position, and with all the perks, pension and so on. So what the SRC is doing is standardizing it across the public service and saying nobody's paid sitting allowance for going to work, because then that's part of your salary. So anything you are paid when you are sitting, that is supposed to be your salary, not necessarily something extra. So the tradition is an old one, but the changes have since happened. So SRC is simply doing what it wants to do in terms of harmonizing across. As to whether that is popular or not is not the issue. One of the things that we were talking off camera is this, and this is the reality. Being an elected member of parliament in this country is equivalent to being an ATM for your constituents. So it does not matter how much money you pay in terms of salary.
Are you saying the pay that they're getting is commensurate to what they are doing, or it should be added?
What I'm simply saying is that it's there's a mismatch between what members of parliament get and what their citizens and their voters expect of them. I mean, you have to be in the funerals every weekend. You have to be available for medical. You have to be available for everything. You know, in other words, the way we have socialized people out there is that a member of parliament, and by the way, maybe they see it right, because when it comes to campaign time, there seems to be money. And people are spending. So they can't understand why you shouldn't be spending when you get in there. And yet the reality is that if you can't spend that way for 5 years and not sell your property and not... So there is a mismatch between people's expectation and what the role, and what the role of a member of National Assembly is or Senate. And that is our problem as a country.
And I would like to pick your mind on the same dock. There are some parks that have been removed, of course, just before the election. And what impact does the Supreme Court decision on the NGCDF?
I think the real issue, my brother, is that the whole thing was done when the MPs were in the political session. I mean, they were going home. And even this issue of the parks or allowances that goes with this elective position, it was decided upon when they were not anywhere to defend themselves. And in this case, the impact is there. And as it is said that the NGCDF was not removed, it was the CDF that was in good for some time back. And in this case, even if that is the case, NGCDF has done more work even than what we get from our county governments. You go to most of our schools in the rural setup, you find CDF projects more loudly I mean, you can see them physically, and even the common Mwananchi can attest how much benefit they have received from the CDF, informal bursaries, informal projects, and that thing cannot be whisked away by anybody. And members of parliament having been in that docket, they will not allow that thing by all means, hook or crook, to go. That CDF must return back. I'm telling you the truth. And then this issue of bucks or allowances, this is something also that the members of parliament, both Senate and the National Assembly, and even at the county assembly, they must fight back that money. And I also want to believe that Kenyans, the expectations of the majority of the constituents from their elected leaders is so much that the members of parliament cannot be able to meet those expectations if they don't have money. So in this case, they must get money for them to exist as members of parliament or as representatives of their respective areas. So in this case, I think it will be a big challenge for the SRC to prove to the members of parliament, to prove to the members of the county assembly, to prove to the members of the Senate that what they were doing was rational and that it was good for our country. And let's now look at...
Can I just chime in on that a little bit?
Yes.
Because the CDF, for me, the issue is it goes to the member of the member of parliament, and the member of parliament is playing an authoritative, an implementing role, and also an oversight role for the CDF. And maybe the issue is someone else should play an oversight role for the member of parliament. They should not be the ones saying we are spending like this and then oversighting themselves. But then, when you think about it, it is okay for them to be responsible for that CDF, because when we go to the ballot, we normally say, huyu tulimpatia ikiti, na tunajua ndo anasimamia CDF. And we know that you can't run away, as a member of parliament, you can't run away from the CDF. You can't say, it's not me, it is the oversight authority. Because you are the oversight authority of that CDF. There is a committee and whatever administrative things that you put together. But at the end of the day, if you go to a constituency and you see that there's no development, there are no projects, and yet you can tell, for instance, in my constituency, Bubasi, they receive a lot of money in form of CDF, like big budgets. But I can tell you, CDF has not been felt in my constituency. So it is okay that it is left to the MP so that the electorate can observe for 5 years that you even have a kitty. You are not like the senator who has no kitty anywhere. You're a member of parliament, you're in charge of CDF. CDF was allocated how many millions this year, and we have not even seen any development project. Therefore, we are sending you home. And you see, for me, that is the issue on devolution. That is the one thing that devolution brought down to the grassroots. The fact that there is a fund that is being sent to the member of parliament down to the grassroots, and he has the authority or rather the influence to sort of dictate or influence that these are the projects that they're going to do. Of course, they've set it up in a way that there's bureaucracy, but really we know that if your member of parliament wants to put up 6 boreholes and he has CDF, he will find a way to do it. If your member of parliament wants to change all mabatis in the schools, we know it is your member of the goodwill has to come from the MP. And I think it should be left, we've seen. It should be left that way.
Yes, and I would like us to... yes,
I think there's something that I would wish to explain. I want to tell you, CDF is an independent body. It is managed by the board, NGCDF board. It is not managed by the members of parliament. And in this case, the oversighting body is NGCDF board of all the projects implemented at the constituency level. The member of parliament contribute just like any other local person of the proposals that the constituency will have to do. It is not in the, they are not dictating, but what my sister said, you can use the word influence. They can influence, but the real managers are actually NGCDF board, and that it has with and they have got their own persons on the ground managing the whole project. So in this case, I don't see where a member of parliament, where CDF can be disqualified just because the member of parliament is at the constituent level. Yes, he has some influence, but they are not managers.
Maybe on the basis of implementation. Maybe just on the basis of implementation, but really, honestly, there's no... What I'm wondering is, what is the end game of removing CDF? What are they trying to achieve?
I'm quite sure the MPs are going to...
Okay, we don't know what the actual position is because there are different interpretations of that. But what I was going to say is this, and this is now my message to the new regime, because government is always around, but there's a new regime that's taking over government. The time to rethink using the bottom-up strategies now. How many funds can we have out there? What can be done at the county level? And therefore, what can these other funds that we are promised about the SMEs and about the youth and so on, how do we collapse this thing into a real bottom-up and bring it up? Who should be the new players in this game? Not necessarily MPs, but who should be? I think that the new government, the new regime has an opportunity to re-engineer this. And since it has legitimacy and the numbers, the time to think about it is now, before MPs regroup and start controlling. Not an easy thing, it's easier said than done. But basically what we are saying is that maybe we need to rethink. Like when you say CDF is building schools, technically speaking, that is a Ministry of Education function. It's a national government function. So why shouldn't the schools be, with all the money about schools, be put either in the ministry or put in the county, depending on what kind of alternatives we can do? Remember, we have an opportunity to even delegate national functions to county government. So we need to think through some of these things so that we re-engineer.
Just a minute, Martin, and as you can see on your screen, those are live pictures from Kasarani, where we will be having the swearing in on the 13th of September, that is on Tuesday. And since yesterday, as I told you, they have been burning the midnight oil. They're working 24 hours to ensure the venue for the 5th president swearing in is in an apple pie order. And looking at the soldiers, they started their drills yesterday. They're going to carry out their drills for the next couple of days so that they ensure that everything is perfect. Yesterday, Gladys Boss-Sholei and a number of members of the transition committee, they were there just assessing the situation at Kasarani just to ensure that everything will be perfect, and said, as they talked about, that they are really watching the budget. Of course, Kenya, as we are at the moment, things are not really working out in terms of the economy, and so they're trying to put it on the down low. Ladies and gentlemen, let's now talk about the first order of business tomorrow, which will be, we are assuming that you will be gazetted today and everything will run as it should, because actually we've done everything the last minute, so we're expecting, even the judgment was on the last day, and even the filing of the petition was done the last day. And of course, Chebukati also mentioned who is the president-elect almost on the last day. But away from that, the first order of business will be the Speaker of the National Assembly, the Speaker of the Senate. These are two positions which have attracted a very keen interest. And looking at some of the names that have been floated, and we will not be able to go through all the list, let's just narrow them down to the top contenders. We have Senator. Oh, he was Senator-elect. He resigned yesterday. That is Moses Masika Wetangula, who is eyeing the National Assembly seat. And judging by the numbers, we say there's the numbers, yes, but it's a secret ballot, just as you said. So we might see a lot change or shift in the way things are, despite the numbers. And I'm quite sure there's no one who will be able to marshal the 2/3 as required, so we are expecting the second round. And someone else that cannot be pushed around is former National Assembly Speaker Kenneth Marende. There's the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka. How do you think these are going to pan out, and especially from your side of UDA?
Yeah, it's an issue of numbers, and whether we like it or not, when you're talking about numbers, you have to talk numbers across political divides, because these numbers are not in oblivion. It is the Azimio numbers, and then it is the Kenya Kwanza
there's also these people, they can also marshal numbers from both political divides, because they are seasoned politicians. Exactly. They are not new entrants.
The point here, though, is that when you're talking of numbers in a political activity like this one, you're talking of numbers. For you to marshal up numbers, you're also saying, I have 10 from Azimio, or I have 5 from Kenya Kwanza. So we have to talk about the political divide. I think this is now where we are going to start understanding the strategists in any of the political party leaders, because it's not just having numbers on paper, because you can come and say the legal majority is us, we have 167, but if you already have 12 of those 167 who have publicly declared and left the camp, you can't be too sure that they are now going to come back and vote under the legal majority, because again I said it's a secret ballot. So this is now where we start seeing the role of the whip, the role of the party leader, the role of how, you can convene people and convince them to the extent, without a reasonable doubt, that they are going to vote in the direction that you want them to vote. And that takes a lot of, it is people relations, the candidates themselves, some of them, this is where you will see their weaknesses. How can they actually relate with their peers, whether it is in the Senate or in the National Assembly. This is where now you will see that in certain positions, particularly this kind of lobbying, it for sure, it is not only that your party has fronted and said tunakuwekea, it is also your relationships with those in those different houses.
Yes, and I would like you to pick it from there. I'm quite sure you have a different opinion, because it's not only the numbers. Looking at these politicians, it's not only the game of numbers. Looking at Moses Masika Wetangula, looking at Kalonzo Musyoka, looking at Kenneth Marende, those are people who can marshal numbers from both the political divides.
I think that this is why I was going to come to that. Yes, there will be numbers, but there will also be history to go back to. There's a point she makes which is critical, that this is the place where now the political party formations have to assert themselves. If you recall how Marende himself came into office, at that time the ODM had numbers, but even with that, ODM had to whisk the MPs to a place, bust them in on that day and make sure they supervise their voting. Because the danger of infiltration was high. So you can't sit back and say comfortably that you have numbers. It will depend on the strategies that each of these players will employ. But remember, this is a place where, if you look at it, Kenya Kwanza would like to make sure they have the control of the house. This is a place where Azimio would be saying, we've lost everything else, with this we must have. So every trick, every strategy in play or in the bag will come into play. So it's not just about numbers, it's about politics, it's about scheming, it's about networking, it's about experience and so on.
Doc also wants to dig in that, and looking at what has happened, it's like football. Moses Masika put a double bet, if you ask me, because he left what he has not yet gotten. He has not been sworn in as a senator, but he decided, let me leave this and go for this as a double chance. We have a multi-bet by Marende on both houses. How do you think it's going to play out?
I think what we need to look at it, we have to look at it this way. The interest of the party leaders played the key role in the coming of this gentleman, the speaker to be Wetangula. You remember His Excellency, the President-elect, when he was in Western Kenya, he was asking the Western people, please, I know you have elected this guy to be your senator, but this time around we are requesting you that we give him a higher job to manage our affairs at the National Assembly. And that is where I'm telling you the party leader plays a key role in this process. And he must have rallied behind all the UDAs or those who are in the umbrella of Kenya Kwanza that they vote for. I don't think there will be any other dissenting voice from any quarter. It will be a one and a united kind of decision. So then that is why we are talking about the numbers that he was really reaching out to, even those who are not with us, the UDM or the likes of the independent candidates and all those. So, you know, these gentlemen, they were almost at the same par as the number of members of parliament who are actually members of parliament, senate, and all the elected positions. So the decision here depends entirely on the role of the party or the umbrella leader of the Kenya Kwanza and then Azimio. So that one of the National Assembly, they have said they are going for the Wetangula. And then on the other side, again, the Azimio, they seem to have rallied behind Kalonzo Musyoka. I don't know where Marende is seeking for a Senate. Yeah. So, and then on the side of the Kenya Kwanza, they seem to have rested that case for somebody from the coast. So these are the cases, these are the game changers here are the party leaders. It is not necessarily so much about this. But again, something that will be very interesting here is the regional interest. Because I overheard some Western people saying that now that we are from Western Kenya, all of us, let us forget our political difference, party difference, and let us rally behind one of our own, that is Wetangula. If the people from the coast, if the people from the eastern will play up the same notion, so we are in for root shocks because of those regional interests. Otherwise, so far so good. We are expecting whichever way come. I think whoever will come emerge as a speaker, that will be a national speaker and a senate speaker and all those.
And I think now Moses Masika has put a triple bet because he has left the senator, he wants the National Assembly, and if he doesn't get that, then he's begging on getting a position from the president-elect William Ruto. And the way he did, and I'll be getting to Martin because of the legal aspect here. I remember the Register of Political Parties saying that in these coalition pacts, you have to stick around for 3 months after, that is 90 days after the general election. But that did not happen. We saw the president-elect avoiding the 2007 situation where ODM was deemed to be the party that lost in the presidential election but had more numbers at the National Assembly. Is it trying to avoid such a scenario?
As any president would want, you want to control the National Assembly or at least have some level of influence. You want to control the Senate. And by the way, you also want to have some level of influence in the Council of Governors. So it is just natural that now
but
that
he has done that to even before the 90 days are done, and some people have already jumped ship to the Kenya Kwanza coalition.
You see, the thing that I would say perhaps he did wrong was that it was public. But that 90 days will be there. 90 days does not stop me from picking up my phone and calling you. I can call you. And I can talk to you, and I can tell you, I understand that in your constituency, you know, there have been national projects that have stalled, and you must come and work with government. And we must work together to ensure that your people are actually, they feel this government. Does that stop? It doesn't stop me. So maybe the one thing that I can say in my amateur thinking is that maybe the issue was that he publicized it. But otherwise, even as we are even before that, I can tell you that the other side was also trying to figure out who are the independent people that we can bring to our side. Maybe the only difference is that they did not send the pictures out there. They did it quietly and silently. But, you know, and that's the issue, that sometimes you have legislature that is put out, that is so theoretic, but practically, you can only say that in 90 days, you cannot do ABCD. And fine, in 90 days, I will not announce that I'm wherever. But it doesn't mean that I've already not shifted allegiances. In fact, as a matter of fact, these 12 people, 10 who are from political parties and 2 independent, they could keep quiet and not even share their photos and everything. And we could see the effect of the conversations that have been happening during the election of the speaker. Because keeping quiet and not moving and does not say that they will go to the ballot and vote according to their legal, alignment. So the thing about this political activities is even the pieces of legislature that try to control them are not really practical. So the 90-day issue, fine, it is there on paper. These people can actually be told, technically, legally, you are in Azimio. But
let's vote for.
But it is a secret.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I think we need to separate two things.
As you're on it,
yes.
Where does it leave the leader of majority? Because on paper, then the leader of majority is supposed to be from Azimio.
Precisely.
Then after the 90 days, some people will move from Azimio to Kenya Kwanza, which will now make Kenya Kwanza the party with the majority of seats.
You see. There is a Political Parties Act in place which also regulates how coalitions are put in place and the manner in which one can enter or leave a coalition. That's a legal process. It will be dealt with when it is invoked. For purposes of elections of a speaker, that may not work because the vote is a secret vote. You can go against your party, that's your problem later. You can deal with it from a disciplinary perspective. The party can deal with you that way. You can go against your coalition, that will be a disciplinary issue. You can deal with it that way. What you are alluding to, which is very critical and which does not subject itself to an electoral process, is precisely how you will put together the committees of the House. The party with the majority will have the whip and will have the power to do so. So what will happen is that immediately after, and let's assume that Kenya Kwanza has their speaker, Azimio will definitely have the majority of the committees and will put the chairs in committees. And in this particular case, the government people, or the Kenya Kwanza people, are likely to take the typical opposition positions, which itself is very interesting because then you are looking at PAC, for example, or Public Investment Committee, which should traditionally go to opposition, but you are a member of the government. And so these are things that democracy plays out and parliamentary systems play out. One thing that I was saying earlier, which is critical, is that where we are going, even in terms of the thin numbers, what is needed is a spirit of bipartisanship. Now, bipartisanship does not necessarily require you to leave your party, but it requires you to coalesce when an idea makes sense on both sides. And I think if you ask me, that's what the president-elect ought to concentrate on mostly. Because he needs to convince both sides that he has a good agenda. And that way, he will have the country with him and he'll have the assembly with him. He doesn't need the numbers. Those numbers were useful in a one-party system, the Moi era system. We have a fairly robust constitution now. All you need is put in place mechanisms that allow you to move with people, those with you, those who are, on the other side. Once they see a good thing from you, they should be able to join on. So for me, I'm for bipartisanship because that's the spirit. I mean, when Republicans find room to agree with the Democrats, they agree. It doesn't make them less of Republicans or less of Democrats, but it makes them more Americans. So we need more of a Kenyan thinking. If an idea is good, be part of it. If it's not, you should be able, even if you are in Kenya Kwanza, you should be able to criticize your own government. Even if you are in Azimio, you don't have to agree with everything Azimio says. You should also be able to argue. So that's what democracy allows. Doesn't make you less of any of those positions, but allows you to be objective and to be bipartisan in
I would like to pick your mind on the same, Doc.
I think while I totally agree with my brother here, there is also a key role that the opposition must play. The issues to do with the checks and balance of the existing government. Because by doing so, it will be doing a lot of good work to the public who may not be able to be in parliament or rather air their views. But they have people who can say no, they have people who can say yes. So in this case, by coaliting or rather by coming together, should not destroy the fact that you are there to counter-check whatever the government of the day is actually doing for the good of the wananchi. And that's why His Excellency, the President-elect, say that while we are accommodating everybody, we would wish to have the opposition playing their key role of checks and balance of the operations of the government. And in this case, it can only be a very successful venture, not necessarily to oppose because of the opposition, because of being opposition, but to oppose constructively, knowing that this thing will yield better results outside there. And as by the talk of His Excellency, the President-elect, he is all accommodative. And he said we shall not look back, we shall look ahead and crystallize the unity of this country into one. By saying, let each one of us has his role in the build-up of one united Kenya and in the build-up of the empowerment of our own people. I've heard my brother is saying that now that we have reached where we wanted, the various bodies that have been, the structure of how to empower Kenyans should now be put in place. CDF has a structure. It is there to the constituency level, from the national. And then there are these other promises which were made by the current Kenya Kwanza, that they are going to come up with funds to empower the micro-enterprise, to empower the smallest of the smallest in this country. And those ones require structures to be put in place. And I don't think that will take a long time. I think the key thing to me, my brother, is not about how money will reach the people, but where to get this money. That is the bottom line, because it is quite enormous that the expectations of Kenyans is so enormous, and that to meet those expectations, it will be a tall order. Because you talk about where we are going to get, as a government, the only source of revenue is from the public, it's in form of taxes. The taxable capacity of this country has gone to almost minimal in that sense, because we are coming up at the time after the pandemic, Corona. Before we survive, we have had an election, we have had so many other intrigues that has not been very good for investors. We have not created a very good, conducive environment for investors. So we are now realizing that we need money. We need to empower the same lot who will in turn pay us the taxes. So it will be a tall order. Here we have also debts surrounding us, knocking at our doors. We need to pay those debts for us to be in line with our brothers who actually loan us. So what I'm saying, my brother, is that the current administration is taking over government, which of course the only happiness that I have is that we have created the enabling environment in form of the infrastructural development. Our economy will triumph or will thrive when we have roads. Our economy will thrive when we have electricity. Our economy will thrive when we have most of the facilities or other infrastructural facilities that the current government, the outgoing government, has actually put in place. So building and finishing what was put in place by the current government is another tall order. So what I can safely say, my brother, is that the government or the administration that is coming in has a lot of work to do to ground itself, to meet the promises that he made to the nation, and also make itself relevant.
Yeah, and
I wanted to say that I'm actually also having an expectation, because they promised me pesa mfukoni, so I'm really expecting money in my pocket. I don't expect them to give it to me, but I hope they can create the environment for me to make the money. I mean, in other words, we too have expectations, not just the people out there.
After 3 months, are we expecting a change in the leader of majority? Because after the 3 months, then I can exit from Azimio, I can exit from any political coalition that I was already in. So what happens there?
You know, in my view, sometimes political things are not things you can be very definite about. If I was the president-elect and there was a leader of majority, my first issue is, can I work with this guy? That's my first issue. Not can I change the guy. If I can work with a guy, I don't need to see a change around that guy, because it depends on what kind of person is around. And by the way, even if that were to be the case, and I know that this is an opposition person, and again the president-elect has been saying it, he would rather work with people who can keep him in check and who can question him and hold him accountable than people who will just be telling me yes, yes, yes. So I would have no problem if I was to advise that, look, this guy is a leader of majority, can he deliver? Can he work for you? He doesn't have to have a yellow shirt.
Like mine.
Yeah, no, I don't know this. Whatever the case, can he deliver the job? If he can, it will not matter. He would serve the government of the day.
And after that is done, we have the speakers and deputy speakers. Then there will be the sharing of the cake. The cake will be ready by after the swearing in. And we are likely to see some of the members of parliament. We've seen Moses Masika Wetangula leave his position and is seeking a higher position. We might even see some of the cabinet slots going to the MPs, and they have to relinquish their positions. How tough is it? Because we only have a cabinet that will have a maximum of 11 men. Based on what
before she says, I want to also give her some ideas. I would expect. Gloria, I want you to react to it. I would expect that anybody who is advising the president should actually not encourage him to ask people to resign while they already have, because the expectations of Kenyans are that he's going to help youth, he's going to help others, he's going to be more inclusive. So my idea would be,
pick out somewhere else.
There are many Kenyans. I mean, he has made those promises. But Gloria, over to you.
Yes, and we are expecting that there are a lot of people who are going to be rewarded for their loyalty as well, and the work they did, the effort they put in the campaigns. What should the president-elect focus on when he is sharing these positions? Because after
I have to correct you on that, though, because you know this is not a system of rewarding people for being loyal.
But you are going to see that
because it's politics. No. Let me just correct you, because above and beyond being loyal, are you capable? Do you have the skill set? Do you have the capacity? Because the only thing that William Ruto is actually very interested in is how is he going to deliver the plan, which was our manifesto. How will he deliver the plan? So, you know, if you sit down and say, oh, we have all these loyal people, wengine walifungwa, wengine walifanywa nini, you'll end up having a cabinet that cannot perform. You'll end up having parastatals that are, again, back to, you know, oblivion, not doing anything. So above and beyond your loyalty, because a lot of people were loyal. Do you have the skill set? Can you perform? Are you qualified? Do you understand the plan? Do you actually believe in the vision that our party leader, who is now the president-elect, has for this country? So for me, I was listening to this talk about majority leader, what will happen after 90 days, and all this organization that we are trying to do. But simply, what William Ruto is trying to ensure in both houses, the Senate and the National Assembly, is that when he brings that bill for perhaps the 50%, the 50 billion Hustler Fund, and how we are going to implement it, if it has to go through the National Assembly or the Senate. He's just trying to make sure that his agenda at that moment will actually be pushed through. He's trying to make sure that, for instance, remember for the women, we promised that we are going to have a special agency that is just going to be addressing women rights, and it's going to be sitting under the office of the president for purposes of budgetary allocations and oversight and things like, for it to be more effective. If it will require that it has to pass through parliament, if it will require that the framework or whatever of it has to go, even if it's the Council of Governors, whatever, you know, he's trying to make sure that this plan that we have, most of it that has been drafted, you know, end to end. If it's the 50 billion Hustler Fund, we have an end-to-end process of how we intend to execute, how we intend to make sure that it actually goes down to the ward level, how we are going to work with the county the member of county assembly, you know, how we are going to devolve that impact to the grassroots. All he's trying to do between now and the next 3 months is, I have a level of influence with these authorities, with these institutions that will assist me to actually execute my plan. I'll give you a basic thing, for instance. One of the promises that was put out is that the 50% of the cabinet of William Ruto is going to be constituted of women. Yeah. Because I was part of drafting the Women Charter, and we actually held him to account, and he appended his signature to it. So he knows that while he's sitting and people want to be rewarded and all this, there's also the issue of we must have a minimum of 11 or a minimum of 10 women who are ministers. And he knows that above and beyond the minimum of 10 ministers who are women, you also have to consider again the regional balance. Again, he also understands that there are areas that he went to. And he particularly said, because of the issues that they have in certain spaces, for instance, issues of maternal health care and just gender issues, he actually pronounced that he will ensure that from this area, certain positions will be given. So I'm telling you,
that is what we are expecting.
At the end of the day, it is actually a difficult process, because the process, and allow me some time, because I've really listened to these guys. The process is that, number one, the plan must be executed. We have we promised an 100-day manifesto, what we will achieve within 100 days. That has to be executed.
And I would love for us to wait for, because actually he was asked the same question.
That at the end,
he was going to do
at
on
the
13th.
end of 18 months within this government, we are actually going to ensure that we will no longer be having this issue of two-thirds gender and that the framework of it will be there. So that's why I'm telling you right now, we are not in the past where it is about haya sasa serikali imeingia ebu enda si alikuambia atakuriward. No, because there's so much more to it behind it, and they expect to see very shocking, a list of very shocking ministers, because and PSs, because it will be technocrats, it will be people who have been part of the process of
let's wait for that. And because of the interest of time,
and you can be sure someone who wants to resign because hata saizi tuko na serikali,
but we have seen Moses Wetangula do that already.
Wetangula, even prior to him,
then he should have waited.
No,
if you ask me, he should have run.
Even
if at all we are not saying about it,
there were negotiations and there were talks with his community and with his, Wetangula is in his space.
And because of interest of time,
anyone just to say,
because of interest of time,
I think, my brother, away from boardroom agreements or inside agreements, this is the way I want to see my government. I want to see an all-inclusive government. I believe in Kenya we have very capable people from different regions of this country. And what I want to see a Kenyan face in the appointment positions of all sorts, whereby we should not at any given time give a room to our previous political differences or regional differences. Because what I am very sure, and I know the president-elect, he would wish to see the election of 2027 as a walkover because of the gain, and that depends entirely on how we will form the current government. Because there will be no opposition, then wherever you will be, come 2027, he will be home. He has been with so-and-so. When he went to Eastern, he was with so-and-so. When he goes to Nyanza, he was with so-and-so. And that is the government that I'm looking forward. Very effective, very efficient, very qualified, manpower from all these regions.
Okay. And because of interest of time, I would like to pick Oloo's mind on the same, because you do remember even in 2013 when we had TNA, we talked about we are not going to be having cabinet secretaries who are not politicians, but we saw that did not happen. And so I would like to pick your mind on the same in regards to the government that we are expecting from next week.
I can say here without fear of contradiction that William Ruto is going to stay true to what he has promised, because he knows the consequences of not staying true to what he has promised. So there are a lot of things that he'll have to do, and what I like about him is that he's in the driver's seat himself. He doesn't talk and go to sleep, he talks and works on it. He rolls his sleeve and he deals with the things he cares about. So I have no doubt that, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to his really innovative approach to government. He's been around long enough. He's seen enough of the mistakes of the past. He has promised to fix them. I believe that he'll fix them. And so really what I want to see from him, as he has promised, a lean, an inclusive, gender expanded cabinet. But more importantly, he has an agenda to deliver. So I believe that he'll be looking for workers, not for storytellers.
Indeed.
And that's what I think he will be about. If he doesn't get that, we will be here 1-2 months from now. We'll be asking.
Actually, I want us
what happened?
I want us to be here exactly 1 month to see whether what we've been talking about has really made sense. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making the time. It's actually 12 and we have to exit the stage. I see Nancy Okware is coming up back, but thank you so much for watching. And we are keeping a keen eye also on Kasarani, where the preparations for the swearing in are currently underway. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Bentroy Njue, and Nancy Okware is now coming up with Kurunzi and Tamrini. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we have a PG.